Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kritika Dadij, your reader, and today I'm gonna read Legends of Pensam by Mamang Dai. So till now we had done 4 sub-chapters of the very first one, and today we're gonna finish the last sub-chapter of the first chapter. So the last sub-chapter is Small Histories Recalled in the Season of Rain. Let's get started. In Dream, my people say they see the rain, mother sitting on the treetops, laughing in the mist. Her silver ornaments clink as she rides the wind, brandishing her sword. Every time she twirls her skirt, the storm clouds etched with black rush up to cover her. We are close to the season of floods, I said to Mona. I should take you back to Gurudam. Every day I saw clouds dropping lower and lower like ominous waves. The hills were blue, their outline rimed in black, and the trees were still. Soon, the first fat beads of water would tear the giant leaves of the wild yam. The first hissing rain would cover the land like the sea. At such times, it seems the heaven brush very close to the earth. The wild fruit born of this union is of unknown family, bittersweet, pungent, often mishappen and hardy, or swollen to an unnatural size, hidden by mountains and covered by a charcoal sky. The forest and rivers became battlefield ferocious within the struggle for survival. Astonishing plants with gills spring up in clumps. Delicate green shoots unfurl into monstrous fans and umbrellas with stinging hair. The windberry covers itself with ants. Insects like miniatures armadillos emerge out of nowhere and move about briskly until a flick of the broom transforms them into crumpled balls protected with green headlights. It rains during the day, it rains all night. It can rain non-stop for 62 days at a time. Not a peep of sunshine, not a breath of wind. Every summer, the tangled undergrowth clinging to the hill is swept away by the downpour, causing landslides that cut off all communications and links. What is wrong with these hills? The exasperated villagers ask. They are under a spell of diarrhea. What weather? What a God-forsaken place! Mona, however, seemed quite content. It's strange, but I feel drawn to this place, she said. Can't we stay longer? Perhaps it was the spirit of the place. I don't know, but every time I came back and I noticed that the village had his quality of absorbing visitors into a forgotten newness of things. It was a feeling of how things might have been, and a sudden revelation of why it was not so anymore. This was particularly the case in the company of men like Hawks. But it wasn't as if change hadn't touched our land or had come only recently. The first white priests, surveyors, and soldiers had begun arriving in the region almost 200 years ago, in the early 1800s. Since then, people from other worlds had come and gone. Through the only record of their journey are the stories that the older men and women remember. It was already a confused and haunted time of change when Hoxo was found. He pointed to a corner of the house where the old basket is which his father had brought him home hung on the wall. It was a men's carrying basket, like a rucksack. It used to be the only thing a man took with him on any journey, and contained little more than a knife, a small parcel of salt, and a piece of flint. This one, particularly hidden by clothes and old swords, was smoke blackened but still sturdy, and the original wave of the cane was polished with age but unbroken. I imagined Hoxo as a baby being carried through the forest in it. How could a baby fit in there? Had he slept all the way? Didn't he cry? Where had he come from? He fell from the sky, Rakat's father used to say. People believed him because he was old and because he had been with Hoxo's father in the lands from where the latter had returned with the boy on his back. The villagers at that time had only a vague idea of the place the two men had been to. They knew that the far in the east, where there were big caves in an evergreen forest, a road was being carved off the mountainside. Reports reaching the village said the Miglins were digging a tunnel right across the wood. They wanted help in this work, and the labor corps were being recruited from the various hill tribes. It was the duty of the village elders to pursue able bodied men from our village to join the workforce. Hoxo explained. The general feeling at the time was that the elder had been brainwashed by the Migluns. What? Ask our own boys to go off into an unknown land and dig earth and die like worms. Everyone had heard the fearful stories of war. The Miglans were fighting the Japans, and fire raged on earth and in the sky. It was said that there were different type of Miglans and that some of them had wings. Those from a big country called America shouted a lot, and they were more frightening than the original Miglans, who were the Beretes. But when it came to building the great road for their armies to march against the enemy, they were one. The men recruited from the hills were given rations and bedding, but the work was the work of the devil. Those who went and returned said the forest and the skies were like nothing they had seen before. The Miglins were terrifying in their energy and determination. In the lashing rains and the wet earth that buried men up to their waist, they drove elephants to cross rivers, remove logs, and trample the jungle. The elephant strained and quivered to the shouts of that mahouts, slipped, struggled, knelt, struggled on, and many of the poor animals lost their footing and hurtled off the mountainside, bellowing like mythical beasts with their eyes rolled up skywards. It was unimaginable what the Miglins were trying to achieve. In the swampy valleys, men die like flies, shivering with fever and fear. Sometimes a Miglin died too, wheezing and panting, and he struggled like an animal possessed through the footed mud. Hoxo's father had initially opened the recruitment, and most people were on this side. Resentment had flared up against Rakat's father, who, as the local interpreter for the British Sahibs had been instructed that at least 3 men from his village be sent to work on the road. However, in the end, both the men had gone off together to represent their village, which even at that time had fewer young men than women. They were gone for 3 years. When they returned, Rocket's father was wearing hunting boots and a camouflage outfit. The first thing he did on entering the village was to salute and, smiling broadly, shout, sir. It was a happy day, and the villagers turned out in a swarm to welcome them. There was also great excitement about the baby in the basket, but Hoxo's father said nothing. When the villagers asked Rakat's father, he only said, "It's a child." There was great noise and fire in the sky, and then our son fell to earth. Every year later, when those days were remembered, Rakat's father would talk animatedly of the thunder of cargo trucks and bulldozers, the shouts of men, and how the jungle burst into flame as the mountain tops were blown off and the labor force struggled to claw their way through the rubble and drag the wretched road across the multilayered hills. From what I had read in the library, I knew that this was the famous and mysterious Stillwell Road that wounds through Asia like a giant serpent, meandering more than 1,000 miles across 3 countries. It started in Lado in Assam, cut through our territory to the pass over the Pathoi Hills into Myanmar, and then into the Chinese province of Yunnan. The road followed the alignment of the ancient trails used by Marco Polo and Genghis Khan. It went up mountains, plunged into gorges, and spanned 10 rivers and hundreds of streams. No other road in the world had taken as high a toll of human lives as this one. It had been dubbed a mile road. You know, there is a fulfilling stupa and a temple of the golden eye on this road. I told Mona. I even began to wonder if I could not get her to organize a trek into these lands just so I could tag along. The road was still there. I knew it was not very far from where we lived. One only had to cross the big river and drive for a day to reach it. The road would take us past the lake of no return, where so many airmen had lost their lives flying the Himalayan hum during the war. It would take us over remote and serene pine mountains to the teeming cities of prosperity all across Southeast Asia. Hoxo, however, said that the roads I was thinking about was now quite obsolete. It would take me nowhere. It is a forgotten path. There is only jungle and mosquitoes, he said. There are no villages. It is a no man's land, and the only people living there now are the men with guns. He meant the terrorist camps and roving bands of insurgents who were reported to be using the routes as a safe corridor between India and Myanmar. I wonder how he knew all this. But Hoxo was like that. He never offered anything conclusive. But suddenly, like he had done now, he made you realize that he was aware of everything and thinking deeply about what you had said. I told Mona this. He was a mystery, I said, and sometimes I wished he would tell me things he knew and how he knew them. Where had he come from, for instance? Mona surprised me by saying, "But why should you want to understand everything? Stranger thing had happened in the world. Let it be." Jules arrived. He came in a hired jeep, marveling at his own enterprise in having found this deep bowl of a place in the hills where a few lights glowed in the night like stray fireflies. It was in none of the maps he had consulted. But then Jules knew this way around him in the jungles of the mountains, Amazon, from where he emerged with data to address conferences in the great city of the West. He had brought tents and canned food with him, and he whisked Mona away to a patch of hard packed white sand by the river. The best way to enjoy nature was to become the part of it, he said. So I spent a couple of evenings with them in their camp. The driftwood fire was a small point of light in the darkness. We could not see the river, but we heard it like a familiar and permanent song echoing in our heads. It was cool and still. Jules uncorked his special wine, and we ate baked and cheese and vinegary olives out of a can. "This is paradise," Jules said. "We should do this more often." Mona stretched out and glowed by the fire. When we went into the village to meet Hoxo the following morning, Jules spoke about how important it was to work out grassroots strategies for forest management. He said he did not buy all the talk about innocent, guiltless forest dwellers. He was concerned that we didn't value what we had and that our people seemed too eager to sell out everything to everyone who came into little money and were designed to decimate our forest. Oxo then told us that once upon a time there had existed a green and virgin land under a gracious and just rule. The old chiefmen received obscenes because they were akin to the gods. No one stole or killed, and any man who would find his way into the compound of a chief's dwelling was automatically protected from all danger. In a dispute, the chiefs would look up into the sky, consulted the sacred fire, speak to the spirits, and there would be justice. Food was sown, harvested, stored, and dispensed fairly. It was a clan. Fathers and sons followed in the footsteps of their ancestors. But the big trees were brought down. The spirits of our ancestors who dwelt in these high and secret places fell with the trees. They were homeless, and so they went away. And everything had changed since then. The canopy of shelters and tradition had fallen. The wind and the sun burned our faces. We saw a strange new glimmer in the distance. Our footsteps led us down unknown paths. We wanted more. Suddenly, we knew more. There was more beyond our poor huts and cracked hearts, where we once eased our dreams with murmured words and a good draught of home brew. Hoxo was calm. As he said this, he agreed with Jules about what was happening. But life, he said, had its own pace. Everything, good and bad, was inevitable. We need courage and faith in the face of change. This is all we can do. Jules shook his head, but he was thinking. Out of the corner of my eye now, I saw Rocket making his own way towards us. A crowd had gathered to meet Jules, as they always did to meet any newcomer. The village kids racked back and forth, brandishing their catapults and making meaningless sounds just to attract attention. Rocket was walking up with his sideways gait and swinging one arm vigorously while the other was clasped stiffly to his head. Hmm, hmm, he said, and pulled out a bottom of rum from under his arms. Then he said, "Hello, brother. Hello, friend." He said this to everyone, of course, and the women and widows and aging crones all laughed. Jules laughed too. He was relaxed and friendly. He shared the rum with Rocket and Hoxo and ate everything that was offered to him. "I think Jules is a hit," I said to Mona. "Oh, he can get on with anyone. Send him anywhere and he'll be at home. He's like that," she laughed. "In love with him all over again." The sun had set and all the stars were out, drawing anyone who would look up into drizzling thoughts of infinity and the permanence of things. Watching Hawksaw and Rocket talking to Jules, I felt that they too would get on with anyone, no matter where in the world you put them. They were like that. So that's all, my dear. Thank you so much. Bye bye. And like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much.